Hello everyone, good evening. Am I audible? Hello, good evening everyone. Okay, let's start with a new chapter today, that is heredity, right? Yes. चलो start करते हैं, ठीक है? In last chapter, that is in reproduction chapter, we have seen that parents produce offspring and the offsprings which are produced, the children which are produced have similarities with the parents. It is because the genetic material is acquired from the parents. So in this chapter, heredity, we will study what is the mechanism of transfer of this genetic information from the parents to offsprings. How the characteristics in our body are controlled, right? So let's start with this chapter. Okay. Let's start with the basic unit first. When you take any organism, right, prokaryotic, eukaryote में plants, animals, any organism, what is the basic unit of life? All living organisms are made up of cells, and inside the cells we have different cell organelles, जिसमें से सबसे important कौन सा होगा? We have the nucleus, right? It is basically the controlling center of the cell. Why nucleus is the controlling center? Because inside the nucleus we have chromosomes which have the genetic information. Chromosomes are ultimately made up of DNA. सही है, देखो ये DNA है. DNA is a very long molecule, and to fit this long molecule into the tiny microscopic nucleus, we coil it, we pack it. जैसे हम यहाँ पे देख सकते हैं ये DNA है, ये एक्चुअली बहुत ही लॉन्ग थ्रेड है. So with the help of certain proteins, यहाँ पे जो स्ट्रक्चर्स दिख रहे हैं, these are some specific proteins जिनके मदद से हम DNA को coil करके रखते हैं, पैक करके रखते हैं. We coil it, we again coil it, super coil it, condense it to finally give it the shape of well-defined chromosomes. So ultimately, the chromosomes are made up of two main components. We have DNA and we have proteins. ये जो DNA है, it has the genetic information, right? देखो अभी तक क्या देखा है? All living organisms are made up of cells, right? When we take eukaryotic cell, it will have well-defined nucleus. Prokaryotes में जो DNA है, that is directly present in the cytoplasm. Okay, but eukaryotic cells like plants, animals, fungi, यहाँ पे we have well-defined membrane-bound cell organelles. Like here in the diagram you can see ये पूरा cell है और इस cell के अंदर ये well-defined membrane-bound nucleus है और इस nucleus के अंदर chromosomes है. Chromosomes are ultimately made up of DNA and proteins. So we are basically interested in this DNA, right? Because the genetic information is present in the sequence of this DNA, right? अब देखो chromosomes में DNA है, ये तो हमने देख लिया. Specific segments of DNA are called genes. See, DNA is very long molecule. Specific segments of this DNA will have specific information. These specific segments of DNA are called genes. Okay, so genes control our characteristics. Every specific gene will have a specific function. Now, how does it perform the function? Okay, it is because this gene has information to produce specific protein. जैसे यहाँ पे ये protein है, इसका कोई specific function होगा. It may be a hormone, it may be enzyme, it may be a transport protein, any protein which will give a specific function, which will give a specific characteristic to the organism, right? See, cells के अंदर nucleus है, nucleus के अंदर chromosomes है, chromosomes are made up of DNA and proteins. DNA has the genetic information, right? Specific segments of DNA are called genes, and genes are responsible for formation of proteins. So every gene will be responsible for production of a particular protein, and these proteins will give us specific characteristics. See here, proteins basically decide the character of the body. हमारा skin color क्या होगा, हमारा eye color क्या होगा, हमारी height क्या होगी, right? All these characteristics are basically decided by the specific genes which are present. And how do genes control the characters? Because genes produce specific proteins, and these proteins will perform a specific function which will build a specific character in an organism. So when we see that two organisms are different from each other, that means what? They will have different genetic material, they will have some different genes, differences in the genes, so different proteins are produced, so different characteristics are expressed. Itna clear hai sabko, right? So ultimately these segments of DNA called genes control the characteristic. Now, how these characteristics are transferred to the next generation, that is to the offsprings? They are transferred by a method, that is reproduction. This is one of the important life processes which we have studied in the previous chapter in detail, right? Reproduction के हमने दोनों types पढ़े हैं, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction, right? It may be any type of reproduction. How the characteristics are transferred? Because the genetic material to the next generation is given by the parents. So जैसे genes transfer होंगे उस हिसाब से characters express होंगे, right? So reproduction basically is the life process जिसमें genes and ultimately the characters are transferred from parents to offspring. Offspring means the next generation, the children. Okay. Now, what is reproduction? Okay. Now we have studied about reproduction in detail in the previous chapter, but let's have a quick recap of all the important things which we need to know to understand heredity chapter. Okay, so first of all, reproduction is a process which gives rise to new individuals that are similar to their parents. देखो हमने लिखा है similar, हमने identical नहीं लिखा है. Like, are we exact copies of our parents? No, we are similar. We have some same characters, but we do have some differences also. So, जो new individuals produce होते हैं, they are similar to the parents. They will have some subtle differences which are called variations. ये जो छोटे-छोटे differences होते हैं, they are basically called variations, right? अब reproduction के दो types हैं. What are the two types? Sexual and asexual, right? Now, in sexual reproduction, two parents are involved, right? Generally, two parents, male and female, are involved. They will produce gametes, that is male gamete from the male parent, and female gamete, that is the egg cell from the female parent. These gametes will fuse to form zygote, and this zygote is the first cell of the new individual. This zygote will keep on dividing again and again. It will differentiate to give rise to a new individual. So in sexual reproduction, two parents are involved, male and female, and they are responsible for production of offspring. This offspring will have some characteristics of the male parent, some characteristics of the female parent, right everyone? Okay, and some characteristics will be new. But when we talk about asexual reproduction, here only one parent is involved. Like here we have taken example for plant, potato plant. Now potato is a tuber, it will give rise to new birds, right? जिससे new plant growth होगी. So basically these will form new plants, so new offsprings. Now the offsprings, the new generation plants which are produced, they are almost the same as the parent. This is asexual reproduction. यहाँ पे एक ही parent involved है. There is no fertilization. देखो अगर fertilization है तो sexual reproduction, fertilization नहीं है तो asexual reproduction. So when the potato tuber gives rise to new offsprings directly without fertilization, without gamete formation, it will be asexual reproduction. right? Now when we compare both the methods of reproduction, as we have discussed, सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन में दो पेरेंट्स इन्वॉल्व है, लेकिन एसेक्सुअल में एक ही पेरेंट इन्वॉल्व होता है. दैट इज व्हाई the variations, the visible differences which are seen in the offspring will be definitely more as compared to asexual. And in asexual reproduction, no visible differences can be seen. ऐसा नहीं है कि वेरिएशन क्रिएट ही नहीं होगा. ओके, वेरिएशंस कैन बी क्रिएटेड बिकॉज देयर कैन बी एरर इन द डीएनए कॉपिंग process. Okay, I hope everyone remembers. We have studied this in how do organisms reproduce chapter, right? Basically, whenever DNA इसकी कॉपी बनाई जाती है तो इसमें sometimes rarely कॉपी बनाते वक्त कोई मिस्टेक्स हो सकते हैं. सही है? These are mutations and these mutations will cause variations, right? But mutations का चांस बहुत ही रेयर है. लेकिन देखो सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन में ऑलरेडी टू पेरेंट्स आर इन्वॉल्व. Both the parents contribute about 50% of the genetic material to the offspring, and that is why the offspring will have some characteristics from mother and some from father. लेकिन asexual में तो एक ही parent है. That is why no visible differences can be seen, right? Rarely some variations can be seen. They will be also very small variations. लेकिन sexual reproduction में हम visible differences देख सकते हैं as if two parents are involved. Differences or the variations are maximized during the sexual reproduction. More variations in sexual reproduction, and contrary to this, very little variations are during the asexual reproduction process. Okay, हमेशा याद रखना है asexual reproduction में वेरिएशन बहुत ही कम होगा. ओके, चांस बहुत ही कम है क्योंकि एक ही पेरेंट इन्वॉल्व है. लेकिन ऐसा नहीं है कि वेरिएशन ही नहीं होगा. वेरिएशंस हो सकते हैं. रेयरली some changes will occur, some differences will be observed. That will be due to error in the DNA copying process. Got it, everyone? Yes. So what is the main highlighting point here? When we compare sexual and asexual reproduction, more variations are seen during sexual reproduction. The offspring will have some new characteristics also. So each chapter में हमें यही पढ़ना है. What is the mechanism of these variations? How these are passed from one generation to another, right? यही हमें पढ़ना है इस chapter में. Let's understand what are variations. Okay. Now let's say ये parents हैं, you can see father and mother. They have different characteristics, right? And this is their child. Now let's say here the child inherits, that means basically gets the skin color from his mother. ठीक है? देखो जेनेटिक इंफॉर्मेशन तो दोनों पेरेंट्स से मिलेगा. ओके, बट यहाँ पे कौन सा कैरेक्टर हम ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हैं इन द चाइल्ड, हम उतना ही अभी देख रहे हैं फिलहाल के लिए. द चाइल्ड ऑफ दिस couple basically shows that the skin color matches with the mother, and if we notice some other characteristics, okay, like let's say the height is basically inherited from father. सही है? Child's height is inherited. You can say it is same as the father. देखो जीन्स तो दोनों से मिलेंगे, ये याद रखना है. Okay, 50% of the genetic material comes from father and the remaining 50% from mother. So both have contributed. Okay, but here for now in this example we can observe that the child has some characteristics of mother, some of father. So can we say this child is showing some new combinations? It is not exactly identical to the father, right? He is not exactly identical to father and not even exactly identical to mother. Some characteristics are from mother, some from father, some will be some new characteristics, right? So these are only the variations. ये जो छोटे-छोटे differences है, these are called variations. Variations are created and passed on from one generation to another. Like here, the parents have passed on their characteristics to their child. Okay? Inheritance is basically how the traits are transferred from one generation to next generation, from parents to offsprings. Okay, inheritance from the previous generation provides both, first a common basic body design, right? जैसे सारे एनिमल्स में हाउ डू वी रिकॉग्नाइज दैट ओके ये ह्यूमन है, ये कैट है, ये डॉग है, बिकॉज इट हैज सर्टेन सेट ऑफ कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स। इसी से इनकी पहचान है। तो एक बेसिक बॉडी डिजाइन है, जैसे ह्यूमंस का एक बेसिक बॉडी डिजाइन है जिससे कि आप पहचान सकते हो कि ये ह्यूमन बीइंग है, या ये कैट है, ये डॉग है, या एक लायन है। सो parents will definitely provide the information in the form of DNA. सही है, DNA is provided through the gametes, right? This DNA will have information regarding the basic body design, सही है, and some small, some subtle differences, some changes also are observed and which are passed on to the next generation. तो यहाँ पे दो पॉइंट्स याद रखने हैं। जब कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स इनहेरिट हो रहे, ट्रांसफर हो रहे, राइट, दैट टाइम एक बेसिक बॉडी डिजाइन का इंफॉर्मेशन तो पास हो रहा है फ्रॉम बोथ द पेरेंट्स। Along with this, we can see some small changes also in the offspring. The offspring is not identical to either of the parents, but it has some characteristics of each parent, right? अब देखो heredity का मतलब क्या है? Heredity is study of this variations, right? Yes, heredity क्या है? It is basically how the traits are transferred from one generation to next generation. अगर आपको definition लिखना है heredity का तो आप क्या लिखेंगे? Heredity is the transmission of characteristics or genes from one generation to next generation. And now we see one branch of biology or science, that is genetics. Genetics basically deals with the study of heredity, how the traits are transferred, and variations. Okay, I repeat, heredity का definition क्या होगा? Transmission, okay, or simply transfer of characters or genes from one generation to next generation, that is from parents to their offspring. ये heredity हो गया. And what is genetics? It is basically a branch of biology जिसमें हम क्या study करते हैं? Heredity and variations. How new combinations are observed in the offsprings. Got it, everyone? Very good. So transfer of characters from one generation to another is called heredity. Now, when this new generation reproduces, ठीक है, हमने एक example लिया था. We have two parents and their child, and this child is showing some variations. Now again, when this child will grow up, mature and reproduce, his or her children will also show some similarities to this child and some new combinations, right? So when this new generation reproduces, जैसे देखो ये वो child था हमारे पिछले example में यहाँ पे, yes, you can see here ये child, right? अब हम इसके बाद वाला generation देख रहे हैं, ठीक है? So let's say when this generation, new generation, now he is father, here we have the mother, right? And their child will have some new differences, right? Variations, like here you can notice, let's say here the skin color is inherited from father and some characteristics will be obtained from the mother, like let's say the hair type is basically inherited from the mother and skin color from the father. सही है? So both the parents here also, father and mother, will contribute equal amount of genetic material to the child, but the child is showing some characteristics of father and some of mother. Some will be totally new characteristics which maybe are not seen in either of the parents. They were not expressed, right? They were not expressed in the parents, but now these are newly created differences or newly created variations which you can see. Like for example, यहाँ पे दोनों parents tall है लेकिन ये child short है. Let's say even when this child will grow up, let's say she is not having the height as traits, ये भी हो सकता है. So some newly created changes will also be seen. तो ऐसे भी कुछ कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हो सकते हैं जो दोनों पेरेंट्स में नहीं है लेकिन चाइल्ड में एक्सप्रेस हो रहे हैं. तो ऐसा क्यों होता है, राइट? ये भी हम पढ़ेंगे इस चैप्टर में. देखो अभी हम सिर्फ एक ट्रेलर देख रहे हैं, सही है. मेन पिक्चर हम धीरे धीरे जैसे जैसे क्लास आगे बढ़ेगा, we will study about genes, what are the different forms of gene, some interesting experiments performed, and how we can study the traits transferred to the next generation. ठीक है, ये बस एक इंट्रोडक्शन चल रहा है. We are trying to understand what we are going to study in heredity. Okay, now what happens when a single individual reproduces as in asexual reproduction? क्या होगा? जैसे यहाँ पे हमने एक बैक्टीरियम लिया. Okay, now it will reproduce by normal cell division, binary fission होगा. So this one bacterium divides and gives rise to two cells, right? Two bacteria are produced. Again, when favorable conditions are present, these two will also divide. Again binary fission होगा और आपको टोटल यहाँ पे 4 मिल जाएंगे. अब ये चारों देखो और ये ओरिजिनल देखो या फिर ये वाले देखो, सारे बैक्टीरिया लगभग तो सेम ही लग रहे हैं. यहाँ पे मेजर डिफरेंसेस नहीं है. जब हमने पहले ह्यूमंस का एग्जांपल लिया था, वी सॉ दैट द चाइल्ड वाज हैविंग डिफरेंट कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स फ्रॉम द पेरेंट्स एंड सम कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स वर फ्रॉम फादर, सम फ्रॉम मदर. लेकिन यहाँ पे एक ही पेरेंट है. As only one parent is involved in asexual reproduction, we can see that offsprings are quite similar. They are very similar. They will show some minor changes, that too rarely, not every generation, right? This is because only one parent is involved. So there would be only very minor differences between them, all the daughter cells which are produced. And ये differences क्यों create होंगे? Due to small inaccuracies or small errors in the DNA copying process. DNA में इंफॉर्मेशन है, इसको कॉपी करते वक्त अगर कोई मिस्टेक हो गया तो हमने इंफॉर्मेशन ही चेंज कर दिया. अगर हमने जीन्स में जो इंफॉर्मेशन है अगर थोड़ा सा भी चेंज किया तो थोड़ा डिफरेंट प्रोटीन बनेगा. थोड़ा डिफरेंट प्रोटीन बना तो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक भी डिफरेंटली एक्सप्रेस होगा. समझ में आ रहा है? सो अल्टीमेटली whatever change will occur at DNA level, at gene level, that will be seen in the characteristic also. यहाँ पे एक ही इंडिविजुअल है, एक ही पेरेंट इन्वॉल्व है, इसीलिए इतने ज्यादा ड्रास्टिक चेंजेस नहीं होंगे. ओके, यू कैन सी यहाँ पे ये जनरेशन देख लो, ये नेक्स्ट जनरेशन देख लो, लगभग तो सेम ही दिख रहे हैं सारे बैक्टीरियल सेल्स. लेकिन इनमें भी धीरे धीरे ओवर मेनी जनरेशंस variation देखा जाएगा, small differences, but it will be seen, and that will be due to error in the DNA copying process. Okay, अब DNA copy करते वक्त इतने भी mistakes नहीं होते. Okay, otherwise the genetic material will be totally different. अगर बहुत ज्यादा mutations हो गए तो. So mutations बहुत ही rarely होते हैं, right? Many a times there are some repair mechanism जिससे कि उनको वैसे ठीक भी किया जाता है. लेकिन सपोज म्यूटेशन हो गया और रिपेयर भी नहीं हुआ, then the mutation will be established and DNA copying के वक्त अगर ये error हो गया, develop हो गया and then it is established, then the new generation, the next generation cells will show some small differences. Got it everyone? Very good. Okay, inaccuracies are errors, changes in the DNA copying process. Now, the most obvious outcome of reproductive process still remains generation of individual of similar design, right? Whether the reproduction is asexual, जहाँ पे the offsprings are actually very similar, almost identical. Rarely some variations will occur due to error in DNA copying. Sexual reproduction में variation होते हैं लेकिन basic body design तो maintain रहेगा. Yes, ऐसा नहीं है that you have parents and they reproduce sexually and the child will be totally different with some altogether different characteristics. ऐसा तो नहीं होगा. Basic body design तो same ही रहेगा, right? That means कोई भी रिप्रोडक्टिव प्रोसेस हो, एसेक्सुअल, सेक्सुअल, इन एनी ऑर्गेनिज्म, still there is one common point, whatever generation is produced उसमें जो basic body design है ये maintain रहेगा, right? There will be slow changes. So heredity determines the process by which traits and characteristics are reliably inhibited. Here basically heredity tries to explain us how the characteristics are being transferred from one generation to next generation. Now, what are these inherited traits or characters and how these characteristics are inherited? Let's try to answer all these questions now. Okay, ये क्या है ये? Characteristics का मतलब क्या है? Traits का मतलब क्या है? और ये कैसे ट्रांसफर होते हैं? Okay, now who is controlling the characters? Genes. Okay, so अभी हम inherited traits का मतलब समझेंगे. Inherited traits. Okay, suppose अभी यहाँ पे एक example लिया है. A male with attached earlobe, okay, marries a female with free earlobe. अब यहाँ पे देखो, ये दिख रहा है, दोनों earlobes अलग अलग है ना, structure थोड़ा different है. Here you can see this earlobe is directly attached and here it's free, it's not directly attached. ये दो टाइप्स के ईयर लोब्स है. देखो हमारे बॉडी में बहुत सारे अलग अलग कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स एक्सप्रेस होते हैं. यहाँ पे हमने एक एग्जांपल लिया है अबाउट द ईयर लोब. ओके, ईयर लोब कैसे है? अटैच्ड है डायरेक्टली और ऐसे फ्री है. ठीक है, सो हियर द मेल पेरेंट हैज अटैच्ड ईयर लोब एंड फीमेल पेरेंट हैज फ्री ईयर लोब. व्हाट विल बी द चाइल्ड्स ईयर लोब? ओके, अटैच्ड टाइप के होंगे या फिर फ्री टाइप के होंगे. द ईयरलोब वुड बी फ्री और वुड बी अटैच्ड. दोनों में से तो कोई एक पॉसिबल है. सही. इट इज ऑब्जर्व दैट द चाइल्ड हैज अटैच्ड ईयरलोब. मान के चलो चाइल्ड में क्या है? अटैच्ड ईयरलोब. सो वी कैन से दैट चाइल्ड हैज इनहेरिटेड द ट्रेट ऑफ अटैच्ड ईयरलोब फ्रॉम फादर. हियर वी सी फादर हैज अटैच्ड ईयरलोब, मदर हैज free earlobes and the child, let's say in this scenario, has attached earlobe. तो हम क्या बोल सकते हैं? This child has inherited this particular trait from father. सही है, ये इतना तो सिंपल है, right? But why the free earlobe trait from mother has not been inherited? इसका क्या रीजन हो सकता है? Both the parents, mother and father, have contributed equal amount of genetic information. दोनों ने सेम नंबर ऑफ जीन्स प्रोवाइड किए हैं, राइट? व्हेन द एग एंड द स्पर्म सेल्स फ्यूज, बोथ दीज गैमेट्स आर प्रोवाइडिंग द जेनेटिक इंफॉर्मेशन. इक्वल है. सही है. तो फिर ऐसा क्यों देखा कि यू नो फादर से ही कैरेक्टर एक्सप्रेस हुआ, व्हाई नॉट मदर? या आप उल्टा भी देख सकते हैं, व्हाई द कैरेक्टर इज ओनली फ्रॉम मदर, राइट? सो दो बोथ द पेरेंट्स कंट्रीब्यूट इक्वली, ओके, कंट्रीब्यूशन इज इक्वल, व्हाई डिफरेंट ट्रेट ऑफ द चाइल्ड? And if different trait, then what percentage of traits goes to the offspring from the parents? Okay, यही हम धीरे धीरे एक एक करके पता करेंगे. समझ में आ रहा है सबको? राइट? यस. इसका क्या मैकेनिज्म है? ओके, ऐसा क्यों हुआ कि नो जैसे अटैच्ड ईयरलोब, ये कैरेक्टरिस्टिक सिर्फ फादर से ही एक्सप्रेस हुआ, लेकिन मदर से फ्री लोब ये क्यों नहीं हुआ? सो which genes are basically passed on through the gametes to the child will decide the characteristic of the organism. Half of the genetic information in the child comes from each parent. 50-50% contribution है. लेकिन इस 50% जेनेटिक मटेरियल में एग्जैक्टली कौन सा जीन प्रेजेंट है, विच पर्टिकुलर फॉर्म ऑफ जीन इज प्रेजेंट, दिस विल डिसाइड द कैरेक्टरिस्टिक ऑफ द ऑफस्प्रिंग, राइट? तो यही हम पढ़ेंगे. यू नो नेक्स्ट क्लास बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाला है. वी विल स्टडी सम वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग एक्सपेरिमेंट्स ऑन पी प्लांट्स. ओके, तो यही हमारा नेक्स्ट टॉपिक है, that is Mendelian inheritance. Okay, we will study about different crosses in pea plants. Okay, monohybrid, dihybrid. Then we will also try to find out the answer कि एक ही particular character क्यों express हो रहा है child, सही, और यही क्यों हो रहा है, उसके इसका पूरा जेनेटिक बेसिस हम पढ़ेंगे. ओके, मेंडेलियन इनहेरिटेंस तो नेक्स्ट क्लास में पढ़ेंगे. आज हमने सिर्फ एक इंट्रोडक्शन देखा है कि इस पूरे चैप्टर का स्कोप क्या है. सही है. बेसिक आज हमने समझा है रिप्रोडक्शन के जो दोनों टाइप्स है, एसेक्सुअल एंड सेक्सुअल. इसमें से सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन में ज्यादा वेरिएशंस क्रिएट होंगे बिकॉज ये टू पेरेंट्स आर इन्वॉल्व. न्यू रिकॉम्बिनेशंस कैन बी सीन, राइट. Also we have seen what is heredity, transfer of characters from one generation to next generation, right. And we have seen how certain characteristics are expressed in the offspring, right. Certain characteristics from the male parent, some characteristics from the female parent. अब इसका exact mechanism क्या है ये हम मेंडेलियन एक्सपेरिमेंट्स के मदद से धीरे धीरे पढ़ेंगे आगे. ठीक है. आई होप आज हमने जो भी पढ़ा है ये सबको क्लियर है. Okay, let's meet in the next class. Bye everyone. Take care.